Hello and welcome to Talk Me Healthy show and podcast. My name is Sherry Keating and I'm the founder of Diabetes Care Consulting. Today we have an awesome topic and it is called, How Much Can You Really Fit Under the Bed? My guest today is Ann Newberry. She's the Senior Move Manager as well as the owner of Smooth Transitions of Massachusetts. So welcome, Ann.
Oh, hi there, Sherry. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much for being my guest. I feel like this is such a great topic for this time of the year when, we're putting out our Christmas decorations and, we're kind of going through things and we're buying more things. And so what should we be doing with all the old things? Should we just pile it on or should we be cleaning out things? So I feel like this is such a timely conversation. So I'm excited to have you here.
Well, I'm excited to be here and get a chance to talk about stuff and what to do with it.
Yeah, all I know is I have too much stuff. That's all I know. So tell me, how did you get involved and how did you become a senior move manager and why?
That's actually an interesting story. My background is very different from most. I have a background in engineering, and for years I was actually working in plastic recycling. So I have a strong propensity towards finding new uses for things that you don't need anymore. And I loved that business enough to be ready for something new. I got tired of being in the back end of production facilities and wanted to work with people. And I took everything I like to do, threw it in a pot, stirred it up, and the soup I came up with was senior move management. And ever since my first client, I have absolutely known that this is what I was meant to do all along, and I love doing it.
That's awesome. I love it when like the universe aligns and your passion, you're able to form a business and help people. So I absolutely love that story. Let's get down and dirty about clutter. So we all have clutter. So what is clutter? Like, is there a definition to clutter or what is clutter?
There actually is. The definition of clutter is actually a collection of, an untidy collection of items. And clutter can be an assortment of things. You can have paperwork clutter. You can have clutters caused by keys, by too much in your computer inbox. Clutter is everywhere, and it's not always something you think about. Too much junk mail, and you turn around and suddenly things are there, and you don't remember putting them there. Even as simply as in your bathroom, when you go to the dentist and you get that new toothbrush, and you decide to save the old toothbrush because you might need it for cleaning. And, I see people all the time with like 10, 15, 20 toothbrushes under the sink. And you can tell none of them have been used for cleaning lately.
I bet you see quite a lot of things. I'm sure you have a million stories to share with us about that. But I must admit, I do have one extra toothbrush, only one though, for cleaning, for like my jewelry and things like that. So that's not too bad, right? We can have one extra one, right?
No, I mean, I tell people 1 is fine, 10 is a little excessive. And then on the flip side with the toothbrushes, I tell them, when the dentist gives you that new toothbrush,
it's for a reason.
It's so that you get rid of the old toothbrush. It's not for your guest basket for when someone comes and forgets. And it's not for your grandchildren. And I usually get people laughing when I bring that up because everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Absolutely, 100%. So how did we get to a place of clutter? And then how do we stop this? How do we stop the madness? Like, how do we minimize the clutter? So how do we get there and how do we minimize it? Where do we even start?
Well, I think the key is stuff happens. The clutter seems to appear, whether you're trying to make it appear or not. And, as we have busy lives and are doing things, there's certain things we choose not to pay attention to. And, some people choose not to pay attention to their junk mail. Other people choose not to pay attention to what slides to the back of the refrigerator. Other people choose not to pay attention to, spending time folding the clothes. They just have the clean laundry basket and the dirty laundry basket, and they go from one to the other. So, there's really no set answer on how to avoid it. I think the key important is what to do with it. And especially now with everyone inside for COVID, what's happening is you have the time to actually notice what's in your house. And you notice things that you might have overlooked before, that, your laundry room is a little tight, your kitchen cabinets are a little full. And so it's a great time to go through and sort things out and make decisions on what you're really using. I tell people, whether it's clothing, pots and pans, or junk mail, if it's not something you see yourself using multiple times over the next year, then it kind of falls into the stuff category and you probably don't need it. And there's actually been studies done about clutter. And when you have too much clutter, it actually increases your cortisol level. It's generated by your body, and cortisol causes stress. And that's how come people who are surrounded by clutter tend to be more stressed. It's not just their emotional, it is their emotional reaction, but it's a chemical reaction in their body too. And especially, since your focus is on diabetes prevention, one of the things when you have too much cortisol, you make poor eating choices. When you have too much clutter, you sometimes feel uncomfortable having someone come into your house because your kitchen island looks like a tornado went through. And so you socialize less, your relationships decrease, you have poorer eating choices. Not to mention the issues of trip hazards, and that's at any age. If there's stuff on the floor that you're not used to seeing there, you can not notice it and trip over it. And then you have other extremes of too much clutter and you're not cleaning the way you used to. And so dust can build up, your air quality decreases. So there's a whole lot of health related issues connected to the clutter. So a lot of times people will say, okay, well, I have clutter, now what? And I tell them, you're not going to unclutter your house in an hour. You don't wake up in the morning and say, today's the day, and by lunch, I'm going to have, my best friend come over and have a cup of tea with me. It doesn't happen that way. You want to find, small chunks of time, 1 or 2 hours. But the trick is not only finding the time. The trick is not getting distracted while you're doing the decluttering. So if you have 1 or 2 hours, but then you find a piece of paper that really should go in the file cabinet upstairs in the back bedroom, and then you leave to put it in that file cabinet, you're not coming back to the room to do the rest of the work.
Probably not.
So I tell people, when you're starting to focus on dealing with clutter, go to the bathroom, get your glass of water, have a snack, make sure you're not imminently supposed to be calling someone or doing something. And when you walk through the door of that room you're going to work in, do not leave it for any circumstance for the amount of time you said. And it's amazing how much you can get done when you're focused.
So what do you do? It's so hard, to depart with some things. And I think that's how people end up. I feel like that contributes to clutter because, like my husband, when someone gives him a shirt, he's like, I can never throw this shirt away because it was a gift from someone and I don't want to, make them feel bad. I'm like, first of all, honey, how are they ever going to know? And secondly, what are you're never going to wear this shirt. I feel like people hold on to things because they have a sentimental value, or someone gave them to that or something. So then it tends to just pile up more and more. So how do you make that decision? Okay, I'm not going to use it, but yet it has a sentimental value. How do you make that determination to finally say, okay, I need to get rid of this?
Well, it's hard. I mean, if it was easy, everyone's house would look like the centerfold of a Home Beautiful magazine.
So true.
So, in the case of gifts, I do hear that all the time. I hear, but this was a gift, someone gave it to me. And you're right. Are they really going to know you're not using it? But I have people who say every time she comes, she wants to know where this is. The flip side of that, though, is when you give someone a gift, the key word is give. And once you've received a gift from someone, it's up to you what you want to do with it. It's not up to them. So, yeah, if it's a really close friend and you know it's going to hurt their feeling that that hideous planter that they gave you isn't in the middle of your living room when they come for cookies, then fine, find a place in your basement to store it so that you can pull it out for the 5 minutes that they're going to notice it or not notice it. But other than that, if it's a shirt that doesn't fit or something like that, it's time to just recognize the fact that it was given as a gift and it's up to you what to do with it. And if it's that important, take a picture of it, keep the picture, get rid of the shirt.
That's such a great idea. I'm going to be telling my husband that one tonight. So you're in this room. I'm trying to think of the process. You're in this room. You've said, okay, I'm going to spend the next 2 hours decluttering this room. So what do you set up boxes and say, okay, and you're putting the clutter in this box and this box, and you're going to give it to Goodwill, or you're going to give it. So how do you recommend you go through the process of decluttering once you're in that room?
Well, there's really only 2 designations you have to worry about. There's the I absolutely have to keep it, and the I really don't need it. And if you split it into those 2 piles, later on you can subcategorize the I really don't need it into what could be donated and what is just beyond hope. Um, and then a lot of people have a third category of, and I hear it all the time, this is too valuable to donate. Now, I don't know exactly why something that has value is too valuable to donate, but it does strike people that way.
So
And
what does that mean? What does that mean? So what happens to that box that's too valuable to donate? Does it just sit in their cellar? Like,
a lot of times it does until I come along, and then we talk about the different options. Well, you could sell it, but it's a dresser. Yes, you've had it in your family for years, but right now no one's buying oak dressers. And yes, you might have paid $1,000 for it 10 years ago, but if you got enjoyment out of it each of those 10 years and someone gives you $1 and takes it away for you, you made $1.
right, exactly.
But people don't always see it that way. I hear it all the time, especially sofas. I hear, oh, I paid $3,000 for this gorgeous sofa 30 years ago. Well, okay.
You got your money's worth, right? They got their money's worth over 30 years.
Yeah, but what happens is people don't view the fact that it's been 30 years. They focus on the fact that they paid $3,000 for it.
Yeah.
And so, they'll say, what can I sell it for? And when I tell them if you get $30, you should be really happy, they get really frustrated. But if you reframe it into what's practical in today's world and today's market, there are some things that make sense to try to sell. And there's other things that make sense to try to donate.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's also really hard to point out, but people need to recognize the fact that those receiving donations from shelters and from, the furniture banks and everything, they deserve decent furniture just like everyone else. And just because your sofa still has life in it, which I hear a lot, despite the fact that the cat has scratched one of the legs so you can see the wood, or despite the tears in the leather, the people are already suffering who are in the shelters or going to the furniture bank, and to give them something that is like, well, it's somebody can use it. If you have nothing, you should be happy for it. It's the wrong attitude. It's really more of, take pride. If it's something you would put in your home if you moved, then it's something that you can donate. So, but getting back to your original question, you've got these two piles, the stuff you absolutely need to keep and the stuff that you are willing to part with. And I tell people, start with the biggest furniture in the room first and decide. Now, obviously, if it's like the bookcase behind you and you say, well, I need the books, but I don't need the bookcase. Well, you just put a little Post-it note on the bookcase to remind you that you don't need the bookcase while you're working on the books inside it.
Okay.
And then you get to the smaller things. But by starting big, it gives you that sense of accomplishment, because if at the end of 2 hours, you've only gotten through the major big things, you feel like you've done a whole lot more than if the end of 2 hours you got through 2 desk drawers. And it encourages you to do it again. And the more you feel successful, the more you do it again, and the more you accomplish.
Yeah. So you as a senior move manager, what is your role in all of this? So do you actually go into people's houses and you go through this whole process room by room with them?
Actually, yes. So different people have different levels of need. But for the most part, when someone says, I just have too much stuff here, and I know I don't want to keep it all, and this is whether they're moving or whether they're just decluttering to have more space to move around in, we start with one room and we go room by room, drawer by drawer, closet by closet, and we talk about, do you need this? Why do you need this? And as I get a better feel for what the person is valuing, it helps me focus them in the ways that make the most sense. And a lot of times too, by going room by room, you start to see similarities. Like I can say to someone, gee, I saw the same book in the other room. Do you need 2 of them? Sometimes they don't even realize they have multiples of things. Or we'll be able to gather, especially when it comes to things like jewelry or clothes, we'll be able to gather them. Instead of using 5 closets, we get all the short sleeve shirts together and they realize, gee, they have an entire closet full of short sleeve shirts. They have 2 long sleeve shirts and they hate sleeves. So, we then have conversations. Okay, maybe the 2 long sleeve shirts is all you need, but if you hate sleeves and you like sleeveless, do you really need the short sleeve ones either? Recently, I had a client that we were talking and we were going through her bathroom to try to figure out how many towels she should take with her to her new place. And I was thinking there were some really, really, really nice thick plush towels. And so I was saying, well, how about if we take these? And she turned to me, and it surprised me, but she turned to me, she said, those are too heavy. I have trouble wrapping them around me because I don't have the strength to lift them. Now that I wouldn't have thought of unless we were having that conversation and talking about it. So we picked the towels that she likes using and prefers using. And we donated the thick plush towels to a local shelter where they were thrilled, because who can't use towels?
Exactly. So you as the move manager, somebody hires you, you go in and you do this process. Now, who gets rid of all the clutter? Do you go and donate it all? What about the things that are thrown away, like in the furniture and all that? Like, how does that work? Are you responsible for that, or is the person that you're helping responsible for that?
Well, so it's a process, and most of my clients do not have the ability to take things to donation. So what I do is, and taking one step back, some of my clients, if it sits there long enough, it gets undonated and back into the drawers or the closets or the cabinet.
So you got to get out of there ASAP before they change their mind.
Yeah, so I try to, once the decision is made, I try to then take the things to wherever it makes the most sense to go right away. Now, if it's more major, a lot of times I'll work with people who we focus first on the move, and then we focus on what to do with what's left behind. In those cases, if it's like a whole house full of belongings that they're not taking with them, sometimes I'll hold an online auction for them. And that's a great way to get everything gone. And it's amazing what people buy.
Yeah.
There's always hidden surprises where there's a little tchotchke or a little thing and it goes for well more than anyone expected. The nice thing though is then you get that $3,000 sofa. Now it's not me pointing out that you're not going to get anything for it. Now you have the entire population that's bidding on the sofa. And so when the sofa goes for $1 and you're doing a happy dance, you feel that you gave it its best chance for getting money. And then,
Oh,
and then
geez.
ultimately, there are a few things that are left over at the very end. And I have relationships with different haulers, and usually I'll make an appointment with the hauler to come take the last few items. So it minimizes what goes into the landfills, maximizes whatever ends up in the client's pocket, and it gets the job done in the time frame that's needed. And that's what's important.
So how, like, what is it? So you must have, sometimes you could be in a client's home for weeks then.
Yes. I have some clients that I work with. I tell people if you start early, you're going to end the happiest. Because if you have a situation where you have a lot of stuff and you only have 2 weeks to make all these decisions, it's a lot more stressful. And it's a lot harder, especially if you're moving, it's a lot harder to mentally wrap your mind around giving up all the space and all the environment that you're used to for the unknown than if you contact me when you're first starting to think about it. And you might not be moving for 3, 4, 5. I have people who call me and say, I'm not moving for a year, but I want to get started. And so what we do is we don't meet every day. We might meet once every 2 weeks or once a week and get started. And then as it gets closer, more frequently. And that's how the process occurs. And that helps reframe people's minds so that by the time they're moving, they're really ready to move.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard. And it's hard to get rid of stuff. But after you go through the first pass, you get the low hanging fruit. And then you go through again and you go, I thought I wanted that, but now that I've gotten into this process and starting to appreciate the space that I have, I really don't need, 30 cookbooks because my kids tell me I just go online and get a recipe.
So true. Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of that, I need to go through my cookbook cabinet, but it's so true. And as time changes, everything's electronic now and you can get it on the web. And so, it's very true. So, where is your territory? Is it all over Massachusetts? Because you're Smooth Transitions of Mass. So does that mean you cover, like, you will go anywhere in Massachusetts, or?
There's a practical distance limit. I mean, I will go anywhere, but depending on what's needed in the job, if I'm traveling, let's say all the way out to the Cape for a client, but they can only focus for an hour or an hour and a half, then sometimes it doesn't make economic sense to work with me. And then I can recommend other service providers that are nearby. The other thing too, using that Cape example, I'm actually one of 3 smooth transitions that are in Massachusetts. We are licensees of a US-based company that's based out of Ohio. And so there's about 60 smooth transitions licensees across the US right now. And the nice thing is we can help people pack up here, and someone else with similar practices can help them unpack in, say, Colorado.
Oh, that's awesome.
But there's a smooth transitions that does cover the South Shore and another one that covers the North Shore. So a lot of times we'll work together, or we'll decide who it makes the most sense to work with, and take care of our clients that way. My base area is, I call it the greater Metro West area. I have clients anywhere from Boston to Worcester. I've gone as far north as Bedford. I've gone as far south as Milton.
Okay. And what's the best way to reach you? By phone, email?
Either phone or email. Phone is the quickest way to reach me.
And what number is that?
It's 443-745-1955.
Okay. And then email?
And then by email, it's A Newberry, spelled NEWBERRY, at smoochtransitions.com.
Perfect. Well, I can't believe our half an hour is up. I wanted to hear some interesting stories. Do you have one quick story that you can share without, exposing any personal information that, your success, a success?
Well, I have a client right now that's in the process of moving. Every time I see her, she keeps turning to me and saying, I couldn't do this without you, which of course makes me feel really good. But we went through a lot of her things. She had, in a prior life, she was a teacher. So anyone who knows that profession, you have a lot of memories built in and stored in plastic tubs in your basement. And, it's tough to have to go through them and make decisions of what you're taking with and what you're not taking with. And so, we successfully managed to narrow down what she's taking so that it'll fit into our new place.
That's awesome. So 3 takeaways. What would you say 3 takeaways would be from today's talk? In the last minute that we have, I would love for you to share. If somebody's considering, they're looking around, they're thinking it's a good time before Christmas comes and I'm bringing in more stuff, what are 3 key takeaways that someone can do to begin the process of decluttering?
Takeaway number 1 is begin. Actually begin. Set the clock, pick a room. It doesn't matter where, just begin. So that's takeaway number 1. And there's never too early to start doing it. Takeaway number 2 is, if it's big and bulky and you don't use it, take a picture and get rid of the item. Then you preserve the memory, but you don't have to take up the space. And it's, if it's not in use, it's taking up valuable space. And then takeaway number 3 is ask for help. It's really hard to do on your own. I have another client who said, how come I can get rid of all of these things when you're sitting next to me, but I haven't been able to do it for years without you? And, it's true. I hear that time and time again. And it's just having someone there with you that's not a family member, that you don't have history with, and that doesn't know your hot buttons, makes it so much easier to actually do with a smile on your face. So start early, end happy.
I love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much, Anne. I think the viewers got a lot out of this half hour. So viewers, if you are considering decluttering, those are the top 3 tips that you can take away from today's podcast and show. And also, if you need help, Anne or any of the other, Anne can connect with Anne, and then, you know, depending on where you live, she can connect you. If she's not the right person, she can connect you with someone who is. So thank you again, Anne. It was a pleasure to have you on my show today. And viewers, thank you again for tuning in. I still appreciate it. Remember to stay healthy, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And until next time, remember to live your best life every day starting today. This is Sherry Keating. Take care.